Hey everybody, this is GGB. Today we're going to talk about college basketball upset of the day, Wednesday edition. We were so close. We were really so this close to having so many huge upsets. If you're talking about, we were that close to Clemson upsetting Duke and just absolutely screwing up the ACC. We were that close to having Missouri 13.5 point underdogs beat the number one team in the country in Auburn. We were this close to Mississippi State upsetting number 12 number 12 Kentucky on the road, underdogs by 9.5 points. But unfortunately, we didn't get any of those. We got two upsets yesterday. Not big upsets, mind you, if you were getting really excited. We got mine right, if you were wondering. Big Ten, Illinois was able to upset Michigan State. Not technically an upset, but upset by my standards, right? Illinois at home won the game by 1 point, eked by if Michigan State missed a free throw to tie it at the end there and send it to overtime. Anyways, Illinois won that game, moved to 7-2, by the way, takes first place in the Big Ten. Now Michigan State, who used to have first place in the Big Ten, now fell, is tied for second with Wisconsin. If the season ended today, by the way, they would be the 3 seed. Wisconsin would have the tiebreaker, having a better overall record since they haven't played yet this week. Their game's tomorrow. They have a 15-3 record. Michigan State has a 15-4. And then you look at the Pac-12. That was the only other thing that changed. At Pac-12 did shift rather significantly, right? Because UCLA upset Arizona, right? UCLA has been a team that's been up and down so far this year, but UCLA is definitely a team that has a lot of talent there, a team that went to a Final Four, almost beat what was considered the best team in the country in Gonzaga, but Arizona and UCLA now are tied for first place in the Pac-12. USC's 1 game back from first place in the Pac-12. Now, I'm sure Oregon's a little bit disappointed that UCLA didn't lose that game, but, it sucks if you're Oregon. But now let's look at it. We got 6 games today in the top 25. We got 5 o'clock. We got Florida, which is at 12-7, traveling to number 18, Tennessee, which is at 13-5. Tennessee favored by 9 points on ESPN2. 5:30, we got number 17, Providence, which is at 16-2, traveling to number 21, and Xavier sits at 14-4. Xavier somehow favored by 8 points on the CBS Sports Network. At 7 o'clock, we got number 23, Iowa State, which sits at 14-5, traveling to Oklahoma State, which sits at 10-8. I believe Iowa State's favored by 3 points. I wrote that down wrong, I'm pretty sure, on ESPN+. 7:30, we got number 22, Marquette, which is at 14-6, traveling to Seton Hall, which is at 12-6. Somehow Seton Hall is favored by 4.5 points in that game on FS1. 7:30, we got VCU, which is at 11-6, traveling to number 25, Davidson, which is at 16-2. Davidson favored by 4.5 points on CBS Sports Network. And at 8 o'clock, we got Texas A&M, which is at 15-4, traveling to number 19, LSU, which is at 15-4. LSU favored by 9.5 points on the SEC network. So let's start with the SEC. We got 2 games going on in the SEC, so let's talk about them real quick. We got, obviously, Tennessee playing Florida. Tennessee with a win moves to 5-3, and since Texas A&M is also playing, so with a win, just right off the bat for Tennessee, you move out of the tie, because many of you know, there is a 3-way tie for 4th place in the SEC between Arkansas, Tennessee, and Mississippi State, since Mississippi State lost yesterday, right? With a win for Tennessee, you move to 5-3, you get yourself out of the tie, at least for now, right? Ideally, so you will at the very least take 4th place on your own. That's at the very least what will happen to you with a win today for Tennessee. With a Texas A&M loss to LSU, so you're going to be watching that game rather intently if you're Tennessee and you end up winning the Florida game at 8 o'clock. If Texas A&M ends up losing that game to LSU, right, then Tennessee can move into 3rd place all by themselves. You would sit at 5-3, 1 game behind Kentucky. So obviously, big things at stake here for Tennessee on the line. Now Tennessee with a loss, you fall to 4-4, you sink into the tie realm, right? Tennessee would drop out of the tie for 4th place and instead fall into a tie for 7th, right, with Alabama and possibly LSU if they were to win the Texas A&M game. So obviously, if you're a Tennessee fan and you lose this game, you're going to be rooting for Texas A&M, actually, against LSU, so LSU doesn't get into the tie with you. Florida will have won that game if you're Tennessee. They would enter the tie as well. So this could conceivably be a four-way tie for 7th place if things fall correctly today. Florida ends up upsetting Tennessee, and Texas A&M upsets LSU. Florida with a win obviously moves to 4-4. I just explained to you what would happen there. Florida obviously would be a big fan of Texas A&M then. Both Tennessee and Florida would both be fans of Texas A&M at 8 o'clock. LSU with a win obviously enters the tie. If LSU is to win the game, they will possibly be in a tie all by themselves with Alabama if they were to win the game. And if you're... that's all I think I have. The Texas A&M with a loss, obviously, I said, also enters the tie for 4th place. It also could be the tie for 3rd place if Tennessee was to lose their game. Texas A&M with a win moves to 5-2. Again, all they would do is keep them in 3rd place all by themselves, just about half game behind Kentucky, right? So that's all that we got in the SEC. Let's go to the Big East real quick, where we got Providence and we got Xavier and we've got Marquette. So obviously Providence sits at 6-1, first place in conference, right? 3-game win streak, one of the longer win streaks in the Big East right now. With a win for Providence, also they stay in first place. With a loss, though, they fall to 6-2. The interesting thing about that is, obviously, if you fall to 6-2, that's worse than Villanova's 8-2. Villanova would take first place. So obviously, big fan of Xavier. Big Xavier fans tonight is if you're Villanova. Now, if Marquette, so 6-2 would be better than 5-2, obviously. But if Marquette was to win their game tonight, they would have a 70% win percentage. If Providence was to lose their game tonight, they would have a 75% win percentage. So regardless of what happens tonight, worst case scenario for Providence, you are at the very least in 2nd place. Obviously, if they win, they stay in 1st. Now, Xavier with a win would move to 5-3, which 5-3 would be a 62.5% win percentage, so not quite good enough to pass Creighton's 4-2 record, would be Xavier's 5-3 record. So obviously with a win, unfortunately you're going to stay in 6th place regardless if you're Xavier. With a loss, you fall to 4-4. Still, again, you're going to be in 6th place regardless. St. John's is closing in a little bit there, but still not good enough to be all that close. Now, if Marquette is to win this game, they move to a 70% win percentage, and they could conceivably pass. No, they couldn't. That's unfortunate. Marquette, even with a win, is locked into 4th place. UConn's 5-2 record would be 1 percentage better win percentage-wise than Marquette's 7-3 record. Really sucks because they'd have a 7-game win streak. Pretty insane. Marquette's definitely climbing up there. They're one of the better teams in the Big East in my eyes, but unfortunately cannot get into 3rd place with a win. If you fall to 6-4, now that would be interesting to look at. 6-4 would be a 60% win percentage. We just did. So weirdly enough, if you lose here, and you're Marquette, Xavier, what was it? 5. So that would be interesting. That'd be 6. So Marquette has a lot to lose here, right? If Marquette is to lose to Seton Hall, they fall to 6-4. That would immediately drop them below Creighton, right? Right off the bat, that would be a huge win for Creighton. So obviously, big fans of Xavier tonight if you're Creighton, because you can actually move up. But also, what really hurts, kind of, with no, not really. So with the loss, Marquette obviously drops lower than Creighton. That kind of sucks if you're Marquette. But worst case scenario, you're 5th place if you're Marquette, and you lose your win streak, which kind of sucks. Now, Seton Hall, on the other hand, with a win, would move to 4-5. Got to do that math real quick. 4 out of 4-5 would be a 44% win percentage. Now, you look at St. John's, on the other hand, they sit at 3-4. So that would be 3-4. 3 out of 7 wins would be a 42% win percentage. So for Seton Hall, if you are to win today, you move to 4-5, which is a better record then St. John's 3 and 4, you would move up a spot past St. John's with a win. I hope this isn't super confusing for the guys. I'm a little bit confused by it. With a loss, by the way, for Seton Hall, you fall to 3 and 6. Not a huge deal. You just lose a little bit of ground there on St. John's. Obviously, Butler is not going to pass you yet. Then we gotta let's go to the Big 12 real quick before going on to our last conference. Big 12, obviously, we got Iowa State and Oklahoma State playing. Iowa State, despite being a top 25 team, is actually in the bottom 3, tied for second to last place with Oklahoma for the Big 12, right? With a win here, you move to 3 and 5, which, if I'm not mistaken, is 3 and 5 is a better record than 2 and 4. I just feel like it. Yeah, it's a little bit close though. Only 4% win difference. So if Iowa State is to win today, you pass West Virginia. So you're no longer tied for 8th place. You're going to be in 7th all by yourself. So at least that's a bright side. If you're Iowa State, you pass a team with a win here. With a loss, you fall to 2 and 6. You're going to be tied for last place with Kansas State. You're going to be tied for 9th with the Wildcats. So big game here for Iowa State. Obviously, Oklahoma State is playing in a big game as well. Oklahoma State lost. Now that I think about it, let's see. 3 and 5. Okay, so if Oklahoma State is to lose this game, right? So Iowa State, it's actually better than if Iowa State is to win this game against Oklahoma State, right? They move to 3 and 5 in conference. Oklahoma State would also fall to 3 and 5 in conference, and then suddenly Iowa State is in a tiebreaker for 6th place in the Big 12. Definitely a step up from being tied for 8th place in the Big 12. So move up a little bit there. So obviously that's the worst case scenario for Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State with a win moves to 4 and 4. We would pass TCU for 5th place in the Big 12. So big things on the line either way. Oklahoma State, again, doesn't have a chance at the playoffs, so I don't know what exactly they're playing for here, but I guess it's to ruin other people's seasons, I guess. And then we got one last conference, and it's a doozy. It's the Atlantic 10, right? The Atlantic 10, Davidson's on an insane win streak, 15 straight wins for Davidson, if you were wondering. They have a significant lead. Again, a loss isn't going to do anything to them. The team that's in second place is St. Bonaventure. They sit at 11-4. It's a very solid record, 3-1 in conference. But again, a loss for Davidson would only send them to 6-1. The only thing that really matters is VCU here. VCU with a win moves to 5-2 and would be tied for 3rd place in the Atlantic 10 unless Dayton plays today. Dayton actually plays on Friday, so you'll be watching that Friday game rather closely if you're a VCU fan. But if VCU is to win this game, they're tied for 3rd place, at least for now. If Davidson was to lose this game, we already have an idea of what 4 and 3 sits. 4 and 3 would fall down to Richmond, which would be tied for 6th place. You'd be tied for 6th place with Richmond. George Mason and St. Louis would both beat you. So weirdly enough, I guess if you're a Dayton fan, you might want a Davidson loss because that would actually get you closer to 1st place, but it would also give VCU a chance to catch up to you. So it's a debatable thing there. If you're a George Mason and St. Louis fan, it's not even a question. You would love a Davidson win to move you up in the standings a little bit there. But I'm sure you're wondering what my pick is. I'm a little bit like the two teams that are underdogs, technically speaking, in my thing, and are favorites are Xavier and Seton Hall. And just looking at those teams, I think Xavier is a solid team, right? But I think Marquette is one of the best teams in the country and definitely one of the better teams in the Big East. I think they're better than Xavier, so I don't really want to pick them. And then also Seton Hall somehow is favored. Don't know how that's happening. They're 12-6. It's not like they have a great record. Marquette is, in my opinion, playing one of the better. They're one of the better basketball teams in the Big East right now, right? So I don't know. I like Providence. I like Marquette. I also like Iowa State. So it's going to be hard for me. I don't really know any team that I think could lose here today. I think all the teams that are favored, I got to go with an odd one. I think VCU has a shot, right? I think VCU has built a somewhat solid team together this year. Again, they're only 11-6, but I think that just going by, just remembering things, the Rams have been good for a long time in basketball-wise. They're only 4.5-point dogs. I got to take VCU to upset Davidson on the road. That's just my pick. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I just can't pick any of the teams that are favored. But everybody's GGB saying adios amigos and have a good basketball Wednesday.